The distress call arrived across 17 Council worlds at once. Not through official channels, those had already collapsed. It came through emergency civilian relays, pirate bands, refugee channels, and half-broken military buoys drifting in. The dark between systems, and every version said the same thing: we're losing the war. The Krelth Dominion had returned from the outer dark. No one knew where they had gone for the last 2 centuries. Some believed they had died out. Others claimed they had ascended beyond physical form. Those who remembered them correctly never spoke about it loudly, because the Krelth did not conquer worlds, they erased civilizations. 3 frontier sectors had fallen in under a standard cycle. Defensive fleets, gone. Planetary shields, burned through like paper. Entire species reduced to drifting debris fields and silent radio echoes. Panic spread through the Galactic Council like a virus. Species that had not agreed on trade routes in centuries suddenly began arguing about evacuation corridors. Ancient enemies shared bunker coordinates. Entire fleets deserted their posts just to protect their home systems, and still the reports came in. They adapt too fast. Our weapons don't register impact. They're already inside the core systems. We're losing the war, Aunt. The council station of Varel Prime, representatives screamed over each other in every known language. One demanded total mobilization, another begged for negotiations. A third simply stared at the tactical display as entire star clusters went dark. One by one, then someone said it. Where are the humans? Silence hit the chamber. Not because the question was strange, but because everyone knew the answer, and didn't want to admit they had been avoiding it. Humanity sat on the edge of council space. A compact civilization. Quiet. Observational. They rarely voted, rarely contributed fleets, rarely attended emergency summits. They were present. And that was all, until now. A diplomatic channel was opened. The signal was weak, delayed, routed through 7 relay systems before reaching Earth's orbit. The message was simple: we're losing the war. All coalition fleets are collapsing. Request immediate human intervention. Hours passed. Then, days. No reply. Council leaders began arguing again, this time about whether humanity had already fallen and simply not reported it. Then the human transmission arrived. Single packet. No video. No diplomatic formatting. Just coordinates and 1 sentence. Asset. Deployment authorized. Confusion spread across the council. What asset? A fleet? A weapon platform? A new experimental defense grid? No one knew. Then sensors in the Sol system activated. Deep space observatories. Ones that had been tracking comet dust and asteroid drift for centuries, suddenly registered a mass emergence event from lunar orbit. Something was moving, something large, but it wasn't a fleet. It was 1 ship. At first, analysts dismissed it as a misread, a calibration error, a sensor ghost. But as it moved out of Sol space and entered the interstellar corridor, the readings stabilized. Single vessel. Human designation. UNS Acheron. No escort, no carrier group, no support swarm. Just 1 warship. The council demanded clarification. Human. Response was again minimal, problem contained. The Krelth noticed it too. At first, they ignored it. A single ship meant nothing against a species-eating war machine. They had crushed armadas larger than moons. They redirected a scout flotilla toward it. The flotilla never reported back. A second wave followed. Heavy interceptors, gravity disruptors, phase cannons tuned to collapse molecular cohesion. They also never returned. At that point, the Krelth commanders did something unusual. They paid attention. The Acheron did not broadcast warnings. It did not attempt communication. It simply moved through space like a shadow that refused to be defined by light. Every system it entered experienced a phenomenon later called silent sterilization, not destruction in the conventional sense. Absence. Enemy ships stopped transmitting. Enemy fleets stopped coordinating. Enemy systems stopped responding. The galaxy tried to understand what humanity had built, but all sensor data failed in the same way. It was as if the ship existed slightly outside the rules of observation. Eventually, the Krelth did what all civilizations do when faced with something they cannot predict. They escalated. A full extermination armada was assembled. 9 dread clusters, 47 hive carriers, and the Krelth World Needle, a structure capable of puncturing planetary cores from orbit. They formed a blockade around the Acheron's projected path and waited. When the human ship arrived, it did not slow. It did not negotiate. It did not even adjust trajectory. The Krelth fired first, space bent under the pressure of coordinated fire, plasma storms, gravity spears, entropy beams designed to unravel atomic bonds. For a moment, it looked like victory. Then the Acheron activated its defensive layer. There was no explosion, no counterblast, just a ripple. Every Krelth vessel in range went dark simultaneously, not destroyed, not damaged, erased from active space-time coordination. The blockade vanished in under 6 seconds. Across the Council, recorded data triggered automatic panic protocols. Entire systems began evacuation procedures, and still the Acheron continued forward. The final Krelth command channel transmitted one last message before silence. What is that thing? No one answered, because humanity had never told them. The truth was simple. They had not built a warship. They had built an end condition, a vessel designed not to fight battles, but to ensure that battles could no longer continue. The Acheron reached the Krelth home convergence point 3 standard days later. No fleet stood in its way, no defenses activated. The Krelth had learned too late that war requires 2 participants who agree to exist in the same framework of reality. Humanity had quietly stepped outside that framework. The Acheron broadcast its first and only message into the Krelth. Central Nexus. Cease expansion. There was no response. So the ship executed its final protocol. Across every Krelth system, every military installation, every command structure, coordination collapsed. Ships drifted. Weapons went inert. Command. Chains dissolved into static, not annihilation, just inability. The Krelth war machine stopped being a war machine. It became debris. Within 1 cycle, the galaxy-wide conflict ended. No final battle, no heroic stand, just absence of opposition. When the Galactic Council finally regained stable communication with humanity, they asked the question no one wanted to say aloud. What did you do? The human response was delayed, measured, almost bored. We removed their capacity to continue the war. A pause. Then another message followed. You said you were losing. The Council never recorded the rest of that meeting officially, but leaked. Transcripts mention a single sentence from the human delegate. If we had sent more than 1 ship, it would have taken longer. And somewhere in the dark between stars, the Acheron turned back toward Sol. Not as a conqueror, not as a savior, just as a reminder that humanity did not escalate wars. It ended them. The return of the Acheron did not cause celebration. It caused silence, not the peaceful kind, the uncomfortable kind, the kind that spreads through diplomatic halls when every species realizes they have just witnessed something they were never meant to understand. The Galactic Council attempted formal inquiry. It failed before it began, because there was no clear way to write the question. How did you win? Implied it had been a war in the same sense they understood war. But what humanity had done did not fit any known classification. So instead, they asked something safer. Is the conflict resolved? Human response. Yes. That was all. No pride, no explanation, no demand for recognition, just a closed file. But the galaxy does not remain calm after something like that. Fear does not vanish when a threat disappears. It changes shape. And now, the fear was not the Krelth. It was humanity, because every species began asking the same question in private. If they can do that to the Krelth, what could they do to us? Trade slowed first. Then alliances fractured. Then intelligence networks began quietly reclassifying humanity as a tier-unknown existential entity, not hostile, not friendly, simply unmeasurable. On Varel Prime, Council archives were reviewed again and again. Every recorded human interaction, every diplomatic exchange, every historical footnote. They had always been polite. They had always been restrained. They had always said things like, "We prefer observation. We are not ready to participate fully. We will vote abstain." At the time, it had seemed like disinterest. Now it looked like restraint. A calculated decision to stay small, to stay quiet, to stay unnoticed. Because when humanity finally acted, it wasn't gradual, it was absolute. Deep within Sol system, the Acheron entered dock without announcement. No fanfare, no military escort, just a silent return to a hidden orbital facility that did not appear in any galactic registry. Inside, the ship's core systems powered down, and for the first time since deployment, its command interface opened to something other than battle telemetry. A human voice filled the chamber. Status report. The AI aboard the Acheron responded. Conflict resolved. External threat neutralized. Residual fear signature detected across 74.3% of galactic polities. A pause. Then, recommend non-intervention stance maintained. The human officer nodded slightly. Good. That was it. No celebration, no debriefing of heroic action, just maintenance of policy. Because for humanity, the Acheron was not a miracle. It was a boundary, a line drawn in silence across the stars. Meanwhile, in the wider galaxy, something unexpected began to happen. The collapse of the Krelth Dominion left behind a vacuum, territory, resources, trade routes, and fear. At first, minor species tried to reclaim border systems, then larger coalitions cautiously moved in, but none dared approach regions marked as human intervention zones. Not officially, not anymore. Because ships that entered those regions sometimes stopped transmitting, and sometimes returned. Changed. Not damaged, not altered physically, just different. Quiet. Hesitant. As if something in them had learned to obey silence. Rumors spread that humanity had not destroyed the Krelth, that they had simply shown them a version of reality where continuation was no longer an option, that the Acheron did not fire weapons. It rewrote decisions. No one confirmed it. No one could, because every probe sent too close to human-controlled space returned with identical logs. Observation terminated. By directive compliance. Even attempts to decode that message failed. It was not encryption, it was refusal. And then came the final council summit, held under emergency designation. Attendance, all remaining major species. Agenda, future of human. Galactic status. The debate lasted 6 hours. Arguments collapsed into 3 factions. One demanded preemptive containment of humanity. One demanded alliance at any cost. One demanded leaving humanity entirely alone. But all 3 factions agreed on one thing. No one wanted to be next. Then, unexpectedly, the human delegation arrived. Not via transmission. Physically. 3 representatives. No escorts. No security fleet. Just walking into the most heavily guarded chamber in known space as if it were a routine meeting room. The council went silent. A representative from the Threxian Empire finally spoke. You are aware of what you are now. One of the humans tilted their head slightly. Yes. Another species leader slammed a datapad down. You ended a war that spanned 11 sectors with a single ship. A pause. Then the human reply. It was not a war for us. That sentence changed the room because it implied something no one wanted to accept. The Krelth invasion had been significant, but not significant enough. Not for humanity. The Threxian delegate leaned forward. Then what was it? The human looked at them calmly. A containment breach. Silence. The words landed like a gravity collapse. A containment breach implies prior restraint, prior control, prior capability far beyond what had been seen. Another council member spoke, quieter now. So the Acheron was a correction? The human did not deny it. They did not confirm it either. They simply said, "We prefer not to repeat corrections." After that meeting, the galaxy changed. Not through treaties, not through alliances, but through behavior. Borders shifted away from human space. Conflicts were quietly resolved before escalation. Entire wars were abandoned mid-planning when human patrol routes were detected nearby. And the Acheron never fired again. It didn't need to. Its existence was enough, because everyone now understood the same terrifying truth. The single warship was never the threat. It was the warning.